Science and spirituality are two fields that often seem to be at odds with one another. Science seeks to explain the natural world through observation and reason, while spirituality deals with matters of faith and the soul. But what if there is more to the story? What if science and spirituality are not mutually exclusive, but actually complementary? In fact, some people believe that science can actually prove the existence of God or a higher power. In this video, we will explore the intriguing idea that science might actually prove the existence of God. But before we dive into this topic, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss any of our future videos. Also, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends. And finally, feel free to share your thoughts and comments below about this video and the ideas discussed in it. Let's start with the fine-tuned universe argument. This argument suggests that the universe is so finely tuned for life that it must have been intentionally designed. Take the force of gravity. For example, if gravity was slightly stronger or weaker, stars would not form or planets would not be able to hold on to their atmospheres, making life as we know it impossible. The same goes for the strength of nuclear forces, which determine the stability of atoms. These forces had to be just right for life to evolve. Many scientists agree that the odds of such a finely tuned universe occurring by chance are incredibly small. Some argue that this points to an intelligent cause, a designer who created the universe with the specific intention of bringing life into existence. Next up, we have the Kalam cosmological argument. This argument, sometimes referred to as the first cause argument, asserts that everything that begins to exist has a cause. For instance, the Big Bang, which is the prevailing cosmological model for the universe, proposes that the universe began from an extremely hot and dense state. But what caused the Big Bang? The Kalam cosmological argument suggests that there must have been a cause for this event as well, and that cause is what some argue can be traced back to God. Proponents of this argument reason that since everything in the universe is dependent on something else for its existence, there must ultimately be a self-sufficient being that does not depend on anything else, and that being is God. Moving on, we have the moral argument. This argument contends that objective moral values exist, and that these values point to a higher authority, namely God. Consider the fact that many cultures and societies throughout history have held similar ethical values, such as the importance of not killing, stealing, or lying. These values are not merely social constructs as they predate human society, and are found across cultures. Some argue that this universality of morality points to a divine source, a God who has instilled these values in humanity through our nature or through divine revelation. The atheist, however, may respond by arguing that these values evolved over time as a means of promoting social harmony and cooperation. They may also contend that the concept of objective morality is a human invention rather than a divine mandate. Another interesting argument is the argument from religious experience. This argument posits that personal experiences of the divine or the supernatural provide strong evidence for the existence of God. Countless individuals throughout history have reported profound religious experiences that have led them to believe in God. These experiences often involve feelings of deep peace, love, or the presence of a higher power. While skeptics may argue that these experiences can be explained by psychological or neurological phenomena, believers maintain that they are genuine encounters with the divine. However, the argument from religious experience is subjective and cannot be empirically verified, which is a major drawback. Moreover, different religions often have conflicting beliefs about God based on these experiences, which raises questions about the reliability and exclusivity of each person's individual experience. Next, let's discuss the argument from religious texts. This argument uses the internal consistency and historical accuracy of religious texts like the Bible, the Quran, or the Vedas as evidence for their divine inspiration and thus for the existence of God. Proponents of this argument often appeal to the fulfillment of prophecies in the Old and New Testament as evidence of divine inspiration. For example, the New Testament contains numerous prophecies about the coming of Jesus Christ, and Christians believe that these prophecies were fulfilled in his life and teachings. However, critics of this argument point out that many of these prophecies are either vague or open to interpretation, making it possible to view them as having been fulfilled by events or people other than Jesus. Furthermore, the argument from religious texts relies heavily on faith and personal interpretation, which are not considered valid forms of reasoning in the scientific method. Finally, we have the argument from consciousness. This argument proposes that human consciousness is so complex that it could not have arisen by chance, and must have been put here by a higher intelligence. Proponents of this argument highlight the subjective, qualitative nature of conscious experience as evidence of its non-material basis. However, neuroscientists have made significant progress in understanding the neural correlates of consciousness, demonstrating that complex conscious states can arise from the firing of neurons in the brain. While the argument from consciousness attempts to address the mind-body problem, it still relies on the assumption that there is a non-physical component to human experience, and this assumption is not supported by current scientific evidence. Each of these arguments has its strengths and weaknesses. The fine-tuned universe and column cosmological arguments are primarily philosophical and rely on logic and reasoning. The moral argument appeals to our sense of ethics and values. The argument from religious experience is highly personal and subjective. The argument from religious texts relies on faith and historical accuracy, while the argument from consciousness explores the nature of human awareness. It is important to note that these arguments are not intended to prove the existence of a particular god or deity. Rather, they aim to demonstrate the possibility of God's existence and provide reasons for believing in a higher power. Ultimately, the question of God's existence is a matter of faith and personal conviction. For those who believe in God, science does not necessarily conflict with their faith. In fact, many see the complexity and orderliness of the natural world as evidence of a divine creator. They view science as a tool for understanding the mechanisms and intricacies of the universe, which ultimately point to the glory and wisdom of God. On the other hand, atheists argue that science provides no basis for belief in God. They contend that all apparent evidence for God can be explained through natural processes, and that the existence of God cannot be proven or disproven through scientific means. Instead, belief in God is a matter of faith and personal preference. The debate between science and spirituality is ultimately a matter of perspective and how one interprets the evidence. There is no clear-cut answer, and each individual must come to their own conclusions. So, can science actually prove the existence of God? Well, it depends on your perspective. Some people find the complexity of the universe and the human mind compelling evidence for a divine creator. Others argue that science does not provide a basis for belief in God, and that all apparent evidence can be explained through natural processes. What do you think? Does science provide evidence for the existence of God, or is the question of God's existence beyond the scope of science? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to subscribe for more thought-provoking videos on science and spirituality. Thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, check out these other videos from us. Also, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss any of our future videos. And don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends. Thanks for watching.